All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Christina Kale, Chair of the Board of RBB Bancorp. I'd like to welcome you and express thanks on behalf of the Board of Directors for your attendance today. Will the meeting please come to order? Before moving to our formal agenda, I'd like to introduce our board members and nominees who are present here by phone or just presently here. Bob Franco to the right, myself, Dr. James Kale, Johnny Lee, Joyce Wong, David Morris over here, Geraldine, Scott Polikoff is by phone, and Frank Wong over in the corner. Mr. David Morris is acting as Secretary of the meeting. Mrs. Diana Hanson over there has been appointed as the Inspector of the election. Crow is present at the meeting. And Ruth, okay, to be here shortly. And then Lynn Hopkins, CFO of the company, she'll be available during the Q&A period at the end of this meeting to answer any questions concerning the company's financial statements. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Johnny Lee, President and CEO, who conducts all the rest of our activities.
Thank you, Christina. When you check in at the time of your arrival, you should have been handed an agenda that also contains rule of conduct and procedures, which you intend to follow. At this time, Mr. David Morris, Secretary of the company, will present proof of the due calling of the meeting. David?
Thank you, Johnny. I present the following. A copy of the printed notice of Annual Meeting of Shareholders stating the time, place, and purpose of this meeting, and a copy of the proxy statement furnished in the connection with the solicitation of proxies for the use at this meeting, as shown on my iPad. A complete list of shareholders of the company of record as of March 24th, 2026, each of whom is entitled to the notice of and to vote at this meeting. This list, which will be available for inspection throughout the course of this meeting, shows that as of March 24th, 2026, there were 17,074,159 common shares of the company issued and outstanding shares. An affidavit of distribution from Broadridge Financial Solutions showing that it caused to be mailed and on about April 10th, 2026 to each shareholder of record a copy of the notice of Annual Meeting of Shareholders, the proxy statement, and the proxy. In addition, shareholders were notified that they can access the notice, proxy statement, and annual reports on Form 10-K online, and a shareholder can receive a free paper or email copy of the materials by making a request. However, such request would need to have been made prior to May 7th, 2026 with respect to this meeting. Now I would like to hand the meeting back over to Johnny.
Thank you, David. Please file a copy of the notice of the annual meeting together with the affidavit distribution in the minute book as part of the minutes of this meeting. The minute book is here and will be kept open for inspection of shareholders throughout the course of the meeting. The board of directors of the company has appointed Diana Hanson as the Inspector of the election for this meeting. The board has also appointed Johnny Lee and Christina Gao as management's proxy holders for this meeting. The Inspector of Election has duly taken her oath of office. I direct that the oath be filed for the minutes of this meeting. At this time, to be certain a quorum is present, I ask the Inspector of Election to now take a poll of the shareholders' shares represented at the meeting in person or by proxy to report the results. Diana?
Is anyone voting at the meeting? Seeing none, there are present in person or by proxy at this meeting of shareholders that have subscribed for an aggregate of 11,882,478 common shares, or 69.59% of the issued and outstanding common shares of the company.
By reason of facts that shareholders owning a majority of issue and outstanding shares of the company entitled to vote at this meeting are present and or by proxy, a quorum is present for all purposes. The meeting is now declared legally convened and ready to transact business. After the meeting has been adjourned, we will present our report as to condition and operation of the company. We ask that you hold all your questions until we have completed this report, and you will then be provided with ample opportunity to ask questions. Proposal 1 is election of directors. The first matter of business will be the election of 9 directors to the board of directors of the company to serve until the next annual meeting of shareholders and until their successors are elected and qualified. On behalf of the board of directors, I hereby nominate the following individuals: Robert Bob Franco, Christina Gao, Dr. James Gao, Johnny Lee, Joyce Wong Lee, David Morris, Geraldine Panu, Scott Polikoff, and Mr. Frank Wong. Is there a second for the proposal? Okay, thank you. Is there any shareholders present who wishes to revoke his or her proxy? Are there any shareholders present who did not submit proxies and wish to vote by written ballot? The 9 nominees receiving the highest number of votes will be elected. I hereby declare the poll closed. It appears that the Inspector of Election has finished counting the votes in connection with the election of directors. Will the Inspector of Election please report the results of the election?
All director nominees have been elected.
The report of the Inspector of Election shows that the shareholders of the company have voted for the election of Robert Bob Franco, Christina Gao, Dr. James Gao, Johnny Lee, Joyce Wong Lee, David Morris, Geraldine Panu, Scott Polikoff, Frank Wong. You are hereby declared elected to serve as directors of the company until the next annual meeting of shareholders and until their successors are elected and have qualified. The report of the Inspector of Election is approved. Proposal number 2 is advisory vote on named executive officer compensation. The second matter of business will be to approve on an advisory and non-binding basis the compensation paid to the company's named executive officers as described in Proposal 2 of the proxy statement dated April 10, 2026. On behalf of the board of directors, I hereby move that Proposal 2 containing a proxy statement dated April 10, 2026 be approved. Is there a second to the motion? Thank you. The proposal must receive at least a majority of the shares present in person or represented by proxy in voting at this meeting, and that such shares also constitute a majority of the required quorum, are required to approve on a non-binding advisory basis the 2025 compensation of our named executive officers as described in our April 10, 2026 proxy statement. Is there any shareholder present who wishes to revoke his or her proxy? Are there any shareholders present who did not submit proxies and wish to vote by written ballot? I hereby declare the voting closed. Will the Inspector of Election please report the results of the vote?
The advisory vote on named executive officers' compensation proposal has been approved by the affirmative vote of a majority of the shares present in person or represented by proxy in voting at this meeting, and such shares constitute a majority of the required quorum for the meeting.
The report of the Inspector of Election shows that the stockholders of the company approved on a non-binding advisory basis the company's 2025 compensation of our named executive officers. The report of the Inspector of Election is approved. Proposal number 3 is ratification and appointment of independent directors, auditors, The third matter of business will be to ratify the appointment of Crowe LLP as the company's independent auditors for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2026, as described in Proposal 3 of the proxy statement dated April 10, 2026. On behalf of the board of directors, I hereby move that Proposal 3, contained in the proxy statement dated April 10, 2026, be approved. Is there a second to the motion? Thank you. The proposal must receive at least a majority of the shares present in person or represented by proxy and voting at this meeting, and that such shares also constitute a majority of the required quorum. Are required to ratify the appointment of Crowe LLP as our independent auditors for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2026, as described in our April 10, 2026 proxy statement. Is there any shareholders present who wishes to revoke his or her proxy? Are there any shareholders present who did not submit proxies and wish to vote by written ballot? I hereby declare the voting closed. For the Inspector of Election, please report the result of the vote.
Proposal number 3 has been approved by a majority of the shares present in person or represented by proxy and voting at this meeting, and that such shares also constitute a majority of the required quorum.
The report of the Inspector of Election shows that the stockholders of the company have ratified the appointment of Crowe LLP as our independent auditors for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2026, as described in our April 10, 2026 proxy statement. The report of the Inspector of Election is approved. Thank you for attending today's meeting. The meeting is adjourned. At this time, we will share some highlights on our financial performance. After we have finished this report, there will be a question and answer session. If you have any questions, please stand up, introduce yourself prior to asking the question, or if you are calling in, we will allow audio at this time, and please state your name clearly, your status as a shareholder or proxy holder, and present your question in comment. Lynn?
Thank you, Johnny. Hello, everybody. Today, I want to start with a couple introductions myself on behalf of the management team. Joining us at the shareholder meeting today, Mr. Vincent Liu, Chief of Staff, Shafiq Wang, Executive Vice President, Branch Administration Director of Prestige Banking, Ashley Chang, I believe Jeffrey Day is over here, our Chief Credit Officer. You met Diana Hansen, our Chief Accounting Officer, and Mr. Gary Fan is our Chief Operations Officer. So it is my privilege, I think, to get up here and share a couple of highlights from 2025, 2026, and to take any questions, whether it's here or online. So put together 3 slides, and I wanted to share some highlights. So for 2025, we generated $31.9 million in net income. It's a 20% increase over 2024. That was driven mostly by our loan growth that we experienced during 2025, which was 8.6% in loan growth. We had equally strong deposit growth during that same period of time. Our earnings per share was $1.83 in 2025, which was a 25% increase over 2024. During 2025, we were able to reduce our non-performing assets by 34%. We maintained robust capital ratios, and they are well exceed our regulatory well-capitalized levels. Didn't necessarily put a slide together for it, but we maintained good expense discipline, and we were able to grow top-line revenue at a pace above our expense growth. You can move to slide 2, please. During 2025, we returned $25.3 million to our shareholders in the form of dividends. and accretive share repurchases that also contributed to the higher EPS numbers. Our net interest margin increased by 25 basis points to 295, and we continue to increase that to 315 in the first quarter of this year. So the balance sheet is well positioned. I'd also point out our net interest margin increased for the 6th consecutive quarter, most recently. If you can move to slide 3, please. So we've included a trend, and really a picture's worth 1,000 words. So while this shows 2024, where we addressed some credit issues, and then we needed to address them in the early parts of 2025, what this shows is net income increased every quarter during 2025, and then into the first quarter of 2026. Our average quarterly
if not, thank you all again for attending this year's shareholder meeting. Thank you.